"You and your friends are all useless losers anyway," my friend's girlfriend spat when she admitted ruining my dish. The next day, her last attempt to destroy my reputation backfired. I'm 35. For as long as I can remember, cooking has been more than just a hobby. It's been the very essence of who I am. Since I was 10 years old, I've been experimenting in the kitchen, creating dishes and perfecting recipes with a passion that only grew stronger with time. By the time I was in high school, I had already filled 3 notebooks with carefully documented recipes, complete with variations, improvements, and detailed notes about cooking temperatures and timing. My parents, though supportive, never quite understood why I spent my weekends testing different ratios of spices or experimenting with various cooking techniques instead of going to the mall with friends. Over the years, I've spent countless hours compiling my own cookbook, a labor of love that spans over 500 pages. Each recipe has been tested dozens of times, tweaked and perfected until it reached what I considered the pinnacle of flavor. The cookbook isn't just a collection of instructions, it's a chronicle of my life's journey through food. I've always believed that cooking is both a science and an art. The precision of measurements meets the intuition of seasoning, creating something that's greater than the sum of its parts. My spicy Italian sausage pasta, in particular, had become somewhat legendary among my friends. It was a recipe I'd spent 3 years perfecting, adjusting the ratio of pancetta to sausage, experimenting with different types of tomatoes, and finding just the right balance of Calabrian chilies to give it that perfect kick without overwhelming the other flavors. So when my best friend Jacob invited me over for dinner and board games, asking specifically for my signature pasta dish, I was thrilled. Jacob and I had been friends since college. He'd been there through my culinary journey, tasting both my successes and failures, and had always been one of my biggest supporters. I arrived at Jacob's house early, armed with my carefully selected ingredients. Jacob's girlfriend, Joyce, greeted me at the door. We'd met a few times before, but had never really connected. She was polite enough, but something about her energy felt off from the moment I arrived. Still, I tried to stay positive. The kitchen was my happy place, after all, and I was looking forward to preparing one of my favorite dishes for everyone. The cooking process started smoothly. I meticulously prepared each ingredient, taking care to properly sweat the onions until they were translucent and sweet, rendering the pancetta to perfect crispness, and building layers of flavor one step at a time. After finishing the sauce, I took it off the heat to let the flavors meld. I had timed everything perfectly. The sauce would rest while I took a quick shower and changed clothes, and then I'd cook the pasta just before serving to ensure it was perfectly al dente. I put a pot of water on the stove at low heat, ready to be brought to a boil when the time was right. When I returned to the kitchen, freshly showered and changed, I asked Joyce about Jacob's whereabouts. She mentioned he was out getting snacks and drinks for the evening but would be back soon. Then came the moment that would turn the entire evening upside down. With a casual tone that betrayed no awareness of what she'd done, she said those fateful words. "Oh, by the way, I tasted your tomato sauce and it lacks salt. I saw this video and the chef said the sauce should be as salty as the sea. Don't worry, I've already fixed your sauce. You're welcome." My heart sank. At first I hoped she was joking, but one look at her face told me she was serious. I rushed to the stove and tasted the sauce, and my worst fears were confirmed. My carefully balanced creation, the result of years of refinement and testing, had been transformed into an inedible salt bomb. She had completely misunderstood the common culinary advice about pasta water, not sauce, needing to be as salty as the sea. I was stunned because my sauce was ruined. In Gordon Ramsay's words, she was an idiot sandwich. I tried everything I could think of to salvage the sauce. I added more tomatoes, trying to dilute the salt. I introduced some acid with lemon juice, helping to balance the flavors. I even tried adding a potato to absorb some of the salt, an old kitchen trick that I'd never had to use before. But nothing worked. The damage was too severe, and with our friends already on their way, there was no time to start over. The evening devolved into an awkward dance of polite eating and pushed around food. I watched as my friends, too kind to say anything directly, took small bites, and reached for their water glasses more frequently than usual. Martha, who shared my passion for cooking and had previously raved about this very dish, pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her concern was genuine as she asked about the salt levels, and I finally confessed what had happened. The worst part wasn't just that the dish was ruined. It was the complete lack of understanding or acknowledgement from Joyce about what she'd done. She had taken it upon herself to fix something that wasn't broken without asking permission or having any real cooking knowledge to justify such an intervention. It felt like a violation of not just the dish, but of my years of experience and dedication to my craft. Jacob, noticing the tension and the obvious difference in the pasta's taste, tried to navigate the situation diplomatically. But even his attempt to understand what had happened was met with silence from Joyce, who seemed either oblivious to or uninterested in taking responsibility for her actions. As I packed up half of the leftover pasta, though I knew it would end up in the trash, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of disappointment, not just in the ruined dish, but in how my passion and expertise had been so casually dismissed. The evening that should have been about sharing my love of cooking with friends had instead become a lesson in how quickly years of experience could be undermined by well-meaning but misguided interference. That night, as I drove home, I thought about all the times I'd shared my cooking with others, all the joy it had brought to both me and them. I thought about my cookbook, still in progress, and wondered if I should add a note about the importance of respecting other people's cooking. Perhaps this experience, as frustrating as it was, would become another story in my culinary journey, a reminder that sometimes the most important ingredients in cooking are trust and respect. Update 1. Thank you for all the comments and advice on my previous post. A week has passed since that disastrous dinner, and the feelings of betrayal and frustration have only intensified. Every time I step into my kitchen, I'm reminded of how Joyce so casually dismissed years of my culinary experience. I've spent countless hours replaying the evening in my mind, wishing I had stood up for myself, for my cooking, for the passion that has defined so much of my life. The weight of my silence had become unbearable. I had let it slide, taken the blame, and tried to maintain peace, but at what cost? My reputation as a cook, something I'd built carefully over years of dedication, had been tarnished. Friends who had previously raved about my cooking now probably questioned my abilities. The thought of it made my stomach churn. After days of internal debate, I finally mustered the courage to message Jacob. "Can we meet for lunch, just us?" I typed, then deleted, then typed again. My hands were shaking slightly as I hit send. I needed to tell him the truth, but I was terrified of how he might react. After all, Joyce was his girlfriend, and I was potentially about to create a rift in their relationship. Jacob responded quickly, suggesting we meet at our favorite local diner. When we met, Jacob immediately noticed something was off. "You look like you haven't slept," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. He wasn't wrong. I'd been up most of the night rehearsing what I wanted to say. I took a deep breath and started from the beginning. I told him about arriving early, about the careful preparation of my signature dish, about the precise timing I'd planned. Then I got to the part that had been eating at me, Joyce's interference. I explained how she had waited until I was in the shower to fix my sauce, how she had completely misinterpreted the salty as the sea advice, and how I had desperately tried to salvage the dish. "I tried everything, Jacob," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I added more tomatoes, lemon juice, sugar, anything to balance out the salt, but nothing worked. And then I just took the blame. I didn't want to cause a scene, didn't want to ruin everyone's night, but it's been killing me inside." Jacob listened intently, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something that looked like anger. When I finished, he sat back and ran his hands through his hair. "That makes much more sense," he said quietly. Then Jacob shared something that made everything click into place. Joyce, it turned out, had been trying to build a cooking brand on social media for the past few months. She had no formal training, no real understanding of cooking fundamentals, just a collection of viral cooking hacks she'd gathered from questionable sources. "She's been following these weird TikTok cooking trends," Jacob explained. You know the ones where they throw everything into a pot without any technique or timing. She made this one-pot pasta last week where she just dumped raw ground beef and uncooked pasta into cold water with some seasoning packets. It was awful, but she was so proud of it. He went on to describe how Joyce had been growing increasingly frustrated with his lack of enthusiasm for her cooking experiments. She'd been particularly sensitive about his frequent mentions of my cooking, especially my pasta dish that he often praised. "I'll talk to her," Jacob promised. "This isn't okay, and she needs to understand that." I left the diner feeling somewhat relieved but also anxious about what would happen next. I didn't want to cause problems between Jacob and Joyce, but I also couldn't continue carrying this burden of false blame. Later that evening, my phone rang. It was Jacob, and from his tone, I could tell something significant had happened. The conversation with Joyce had gone far worse than either of us could have anticipated. When Jacob confronted her about the pasta incident, she initially tried to deny everything. "I didn't add salt to their pasta," she had insisted. "I was trying to shield them from their mistake. Everyone was expecting this amazing dish, and it wasn't even properly seasoned. I was trying to help them save face." Jacob pressed further, pointing out that several people had witnessed her earlier admission about adding salt. That's when Joyce's facade cracked and the truth came pouring out. "Fine," she had exploded. "Yes, I added salt, and you know what? I'm glad I did it. Do you have any idea what it's like hearing you constantly praise their cooking? Oh, their pasta is amazing, their sauce is perfect. Nobody makes it like them. It's like nothing I make is ever good enough for you." The revelation of her deliberate sabotage stunned Jacob. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding or a well-intentioned mistake. It was a calculated act of jealousy and spite, but what came next shocked him even more. "You and your friends are all useless losers anyway," Joyce had spat. "You sit around playing board games and obsessing over some amateur cook's mediocre pasta. At least I'm trying to build something real with my cooking brand. I have followers who appreciate what I do." Jacob told me how he'd stood there, watching this person he thought he knew transform into someone unrecognizable. Her words revealed not just jealousy, but a deep-seated insecurity and a willingness to hurt others to protect her ego. "I couldn't believe what I was hearing," Jacob said to me over the phone. "It wasn't just about the pasta anymore. It was about her complete lack of respect for me, for you, for all our friends. I told her it was over." Joyce's reaction to the breakup was explosive. She accused Jacob of always taking my side, of never supporting her dreams, of being blind to her natural talent in the kitchen. She claimed that her social media following proved she knew more about modern cooking than I did with my old-fashioned techniques. "You'll regret this," she had threatened as she gathered her things. Jacob stood firm, telling her that any attempt to spread false narratives about the situation would only reveal her true character. He helped her pack her remaining belongings from his apartment, and just like that, their relationship was over. As Jacob recounted all this to me, I felt a mix of emotions: relief that the truth was out, guilt over being the catalyst for their breakup, and anger at Joyce's attempts to discredit my passion and expertise. But mostly, I felt grateful for having a friend who understood how much cooking meant to me and was willing to stand up for what was right. "I'm sorry, bro," I said to Jacob. "I never meant for this to cause such chaos." "Don't apologize," he replied firmly. "You didn't cause this, she did, and honestly, this showed me who she really is before things got more serious. Besides, nobody messes with my friend's cooking and gets away with it." We both laughed at that, and for the first time since the dinner party, I felt the tension in my shoulders release. The incident had left a mark, but it had also reinforced something important. True friends respect and support each other's passions. They don't try to tear them down out of jealousy or spite. This experience, as unpleasant as it was, taught me valuable lessons about standing up for myself and my craft. Cooking isn't just about following recipes or jumping on trends. It's about respect for the ingredients, the techniques, and the people you're cooking for. It's about passion, dedication, and continuous learning. And sometimes, it's about having the courage to defend those principles, even when it's uncomfortable. Update 2. The aftermath of the dinner incident took an even darker turn the following day. When I checked my social media, I discovered Joyce had not only blocked me on every platform, but had launched a full-scale campaign to discredit me and my cooking. Through mutual friends who still followed her, I learned she was crafting an elaborate narrative about the incident, twisting the truth to paint herself as the victim. Her first post appeared on her cooking account, which had about 5,000 followers. "Let me tell you about toxic kitchen culture and the gatekeepers who think they own cooking," she began. She went on to describe how she had been bullied by an amateur cook who couldn't handle constructive criticism about their mediocre pasta dish. She claimed I had manipulated her boyfriend into breaking up with her because I was jealous of her growing success in the culinary world. The irony of her accusations wasn't lost on anyone who knew the truth. She portrayed herself as a victim of traditional cooking elitism, claiming that innovative food creators like herself were being pushed out by outdated cooks who refused to embrace new techniques. She even went so far as to suggest that my entire cooking reputation was built on stolen recipes and basic techniques that anyone could master. But her attempts to discredit me didn't stop at vague social media posts. She began directly attacking my cookbook, which I'd been working on for years. In a series of stories and posts, she claimed to have tested several recipes from my book. She posted photos of deliberately botched dishes, claiming they were the result of following my unclear and overcomplicated instructions. What she didn't expect was the backlash from my supporters. Several local housewives who had attended my cooking workshops and tested my recipes came to my defense. Joyce's response was to accuse these women of being paid shills and part of my cooking cult. She claimed I had manipulated them into defending me, that I was destroying the modern cooking community with my outdated methods. The absurdity of her accusations only served to make her look more desperate and vindictive. Things escalated when she began contacting mutual friends, trying to gather dirt on me. She reached out to people from our social circle, asking if they had ever gotten sick from my cooking or had any bad experiences with my food. When that yielded no results, she started suggesting that I had sabotaged her relationship with Jacob out of jealousy over her growing influence in the cooking world. Jacob, who had remained largely silent during her social media tirade, finally spoke up when she began dragging their relationship into it. He posted a simple but effective response. "The truth is simple. You sabotaged someone's cooking out of jealousy, admitted to it, and showed no remorse. Our relationship ended because of your actions and attitude, not because of anyone else's influence." His post garnered support from others who had been at the dinner party, each confirming the real sequence of events. Martha, the fellow foodie who had first noticed the oversalted pasta, shared her own account of the evening. "I watched someone deliberately try to sabotage a friend's cooking, then lie about it. That's not toxic kitchen culture, that's just toxic behavior." Joyce's attempts to spin the narrative continued to backfire. Her followers began questioning her other cooking posts, noticing inconsistencies in her techniques and recipes. Several pointed out that her innovative methods often resulted in unsafe cooking practices, like her infamous raw meat and pasta dish. The final blow to her credibility came when she attempted to recreate my pasta dish on a live stream, claiming she would show everyone how it should be done. The resulting dish was a disaster, overcooked pasta swimming in an unbalanced sauce that even her most loyal followers couldn't defend. The comment section filled with criticisms, forcing her to end the stream early. Through all of this, I maintained my dignity and refused to engage in online drama. Instead, I channeled my energy into my cookbook, adding a new section about the importance of respect in the kitchen. I wrote about how cooking isn't just about following recipes. It's about understanding and respecting the ingredients, the techniques, and the people you're cooking for. Looking back, I realized that Joyce's attempts to humiliate me actually revealed more about her own insecurities than any flaws in my cooking. Her need to tear others down to build herself up showed a fundamental misunderstanding of what cooking is really about. It's not about social media followers or viral videos. It's about passion, dedication, and the joy of creating something that brings people together. The incident, though unpleasant, strengthened my resolve to continue sharing my love of cooking with others. It taught me that standing up for yourself doesn't mean engaging in petty battles, but rather staying true to your principles and letting your work speak for itself. The support I received from the community showed me that authentic passion and expertise will always shine through, no matter how much someone tries to dim your light. As I continue working on my cookbook, I've included a subtle dedication to all the cooks who understand that true culinary artistry comes from respect, patience, and love, not likes and followers. It's my way of acknowledging the lesson learned while staying true to the positive spirit of cooking that I've always believed in.